Welcome to the 101, the show for small business owners and entrepreneurs. I'm Michael Morris, and with me today again is Rachel. Rachel, how are you?
I am wonderful. How are you? I am more energetic this week.
Yeah, well,
I was dead last week.
You were a little sleepy time, but I don't think it was fair that I talked for 17 minutes and then said, "What do you think of that?"
Yeah, it's really not fair.
Yeah, well, I was just covering up. I thought today that what we talk about, because last week we talked about collaboration and how we put clients together and how other people should approach that. Something I thought we should talk about today that we talk about a lot is auditing your circle.
Yes.
Do you want to define that?
Auditing your circle, just basically adding to or decreasing your, I guess, your closest friend, to the people that you associate yourself with that are going to help push you towards your goals.
Right. And I will say that I first heard about this. This was something that there was a Nightline report about Steve Jobs after he had died, and they had talked to a guy who was an author of a book. Actually, it was like a networking group. So, Mr. Biz, if you're listening, you love networking, this is where this came from. What this was originally proposed as is you are the sum of the 5 people you spend the most time with. Mm-hmm. So if you look at kids when they're younger and everyone says, oh, they're always hanging around 1 or 2 bad kids, and that kid, that their path kind of delves off a little bit because they're hanging around people with bad habits that do bad things or just are lackluster. That's where this comes from. So I thought what was important is we always are evaluating, not just on our personal lives, but in our business lives. We're always trying to move forward, right? So in that case, you have to find people who...
with the same mindset, the same goals.
And they can't drag you down.
Right.
Because a lot of people, everybody wants to see you do well, just not better than them, right? So you have it on multiple levels, right? You have it on your professional side and then your competing side. Mm-hmm. How many people, when you started competing, started all of a sudden backbiting you or talking behind your back?
A lot of them. I was like completely by myself for that, and then now it's kind of the opposite. Now they all want a part of it.
Right, because you've done the hard work. When you are auditing your circle, again, there's 5 people that are gonna. It's not that you pick those 5 and that's it for the end of time. It is, if you want to get better, you have to spend time with people that are doing the things you want to do, right? So in your situation, work-wise, you're trying to elevate your situation financially. Mm-hmm. So you've got to spend time with people that financially are pushing the ball forward. But competing,
well, yeah, because I want to be able to hang on their level. And so my friends were always, when I was like 22 or so and started working with Mike, my friends were all 27, 28, 29 years old and like had all these like nice things and stuff, and I was still in college, and I was like, well, I don't want to be like the only one without any of, I don't know, at least nice cars and whatever. So that kind of pushed me forward a little bit.
But if you also look at what you said was very interesting is that you ended up kind of alone. Mm-hmm. But by being alone and getting rid of the people that will hold you back, how did you feel about, like, how did you feel about your purpose, about, your motivation?
I mean, being alone, I'm kind of an introvert, so being alone is, I'm completely fine with that, like finding motivation in whatever it is that I'm passionate about. So that was kind of easy for me after a little while. And now, I mean, like being on a team and stuff as far as competing in bodybuilding goes, all those people had the same goals in mind, or the same mindset, the same passion. So we ended up clicking, and now, in that sense, those people are who I go to for
advice or to
in that
pick you
sense.
back up.
And then I have like my business side of friends, I guess, that do the same thing, just in that aspect.
But it forces you to level up, right? Mm-hmm. But let's talk about when we first met. The people that you were hanging around when I first met you were, everything was about what we're doing when we get out of work, where we're going to go drink, we're going to do that. And again, that's not knocking it because you were younger. Yeah. But most of these people were not younger. They were...
Well, and the funny thing is, some of them weren't younger, but those people are still doing
They're still doing the same thing.
Yeah.
which it's easy to get stuck in that because you don't have to deal with the fact you're not moving forward. If you keep repeating the same things, there's comfort there, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's scary to change. It's scary to get rid of people in your life who you think you need, right?
Mm-hmm.
So in my instance, when I started doing all this, when I started this company, it's hard to find people. You can find people that do the same thing that you do, but they don't have the passion or they don't have the vision to do it.
Right.
And it's hard because you want to pick people up. If you can't pick them up, the frustration is on you. It's not on them. They don't care. They see you're making an effort, but, oh, you'll take care of that for me. Or, you know, they're not going to get to your level because they don't care.
Well, and the biggest thing is, this makes me so frustrated and so mad. I have tons of friends or people that I used to be friends with, they'll be like, how are you so lucky? How does all this stuff happen to you? And it infuriates me.
There's no luck about it. It is you're making choices, right?
Yeah.
You're making choices
Like,
of what you want.
I cut out the things that you guys are still doing 2 years ago and added in positive things. And
Right. Okay, let's talk about that. So you've changed, I would say that your business circle has changed and your personal circle has changed. What negatives do you have on a daily basis? Or are there? Because here's the thing, you're always going to, me personally, the negative is we're always chasing a goal, right?
Mm-hmm.
I will go through, let's say, 90 minutes where I'm trying to figure out how to get in a 12-month period to this goal, right? We always say that the money doesn't matter because money is like trophies. We just want to win the most trophies, right? Not because we want anything extravagant, it's because we're chasing them. And it's always something that seems so unrealistic, right? And then when we hit it, it's like, we celebrate for about 30 seconds and then move on,
and
right?
we're like, no.
Yeah, and then we move the bar. But wouldn't you say that there aren't a lot of negatives to that other than the pressure you're putting on yourself?
Mm-hmm.
Because you just took, top 5 in a national competition.
Yeah.
While working, while doing radio shows, while doing paperwork and doing all the boring stuff, and you still had to train, and you take top 5 nationally. And I think what you said was you didn't think you were going to place, you didn't think you were going to do that well, and then you go and, you killed it, right? But you probably thought, well, I probably could have won it, right?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So when you
as soon
do...
as I got off stage, I was like, how can I work harder?
Right, right.
How can I level up?
Whereas other people will say, I got cheated, I got gypped, or whatever, and they probably didn't put in the same amount of work as you. Mm-hmm. And they'll get in a negative state, and their friends will say, you know what, you did get cheated. Mm-hmm. You did get ripped off. That should have been your first place. And then they'll quit. Because if you're looking for an excuse, you will find it. And if you're around the right people, they will tell you it's okay. Don't worry about that. You know, don't put so much pressure on yourself. I can't stand that when someone says, don't put so much pressure on yourself.
Yeah, I work better under pressure,
Right.
personally, so...
We want broken things. So if it's broken, that's the best time. But I kept saying to you, like, why would you even go to a show if you don't think you're going to win? And not that you were negative about it, but when you left, you felt like, oh, I could have done better, right? Again, you and I spend more time together than I think we spend with anybody that maybe our families. I think in your case, since your family's out of town, it might be more than that.
My second dad over here.
Right. But when we look at these things, again, if you're auditing your circle, you have to look at when you give someone a task. And that task could be a simple thing. It could be, we're working on a project. Can you get your product done on time? When is a timeline that we can release this and get it out to the public? If we have to ask, if I have to ask more than twice, I lose my mind. But will give.
Don't ask anymore.
But when I don't ask again, it is simply, I'm not going to force you to do it, right? So I'm not trying to be mean to anybody. I know people think that the way that we communicate with them is wrong because they're a little sensitive.
Wrong or harsh.
Or harsh, yeah.
Or just blunt. Like, it is what it is.
But it's not to be mean. We only care about your success, right? And I want to be around people that want to change things. If you have something that's you're passionate about, I want to be involved in that. I'm not even worried about what the money is, right? It is, I want to see this thing in someone's hands, or I want to see them drive it, or I want to see them posting on Facebook that they bought it. Like, to me, that's the win. So I know that it does come off as harsh a lot of times, but I thought it was just me until I realized you kind of do the same thing. You
Yep,
kind of
just
speak
a
the same
little
way.
mini version,
Right.
mini female version of you.
But I also, you know, when we were doing some research on this the other day, and this topic, this auditing your circle, Gary Vee has a whole video on that. So then I wanted to see, where did this originate? And this goes back to a guy named Jim Rohn, R-O-H-N, if you want to look it up. This was like his original concept, and he was right. So people have adapted this and moved it on, and keep forgetting to kind of mention where it comes from. But if somebody like Steve Jobs or Gary Vee, entrepreneurs, people that are massively successful are coming up with it, it must work for people. And I don't know that you intentionally did this, other than I might have said this 10 or 20,000 times to you, that you are who you hang around with.
Mm-hmm.
But that was the amazing thing, is to see the transition for you from when I first met you, and you were probably, I don't know, 19 or 20 years old at the time.
Yeah.
And seeing the people that were closer to my age than your age doing the same things that, you know what, you should want to do that when you're younger. But you could tell that you were kind of bored with it.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas they couldn't wait to get there. So they're spending their time at work the entire time planning on where we're going to go and get fall down drunk.
Yeah,
Right?
not for me.
And what are they doing today? The exact same
Getting
thing.
fall down drunk.
Right. I do want to cut the break real quick and then get back into this subject. You're listening to the 101. So what I want to do is I want to go into, you know, you can ask me this question. You can say, what is Jim Rohn? What were his 3 theories about it? Or we can just go back into a personal situation for you. Okay.
What are they?
3 theories is, if you do something often enough, a ratio will appear, like a batting average. The law of averages is, once it starts, now you can measure a trend. You create something.
Was that what he was talking about? The 1 to 10, 2 to 10,
Yes,
3 to 10?
yes. And then what you don't have in skill, you can make up in numbers. So the more time, I could be really bad at it and do it 1 out of 10 times over and over and over, but then again, eventually I go 3 out of 10 times, then 5 out of 10 times. So you can do that.
Okay, let's see that.
Ready?
Yep. Welcome back to the 101. Rachel, we were talking about auditing your circle and the 5 people in that circle that are the most important. You kind of heard me going through some of this research, because I did listen to Jim Rohn the other day.
We were listening to it while we were working on some numbers and whatnot.
Right.
But,
We're really fun people. We're just constantly working on numbers and writing things.
and making me listen to, like, music that I don't know.
Listen, if you don't know Fleetwood Mac, you got to get educated on this
Don't.
stuff. I'm just telling you.
Really, really don't.
I think people listening will know Fleetwood Mac is important. But you were going to say something about Jim Rohn.
Anyways, back to Jim Rohn. When we were doing these numbers and he was playing this video in the background, there were 3 theories that Jim Rohn kept talking about in his video. And what were those?
Well, number 1 was, if you do something often enough, it creates a ratio. So by ratio, it is, in this instance, let's say I want you to buy my product, and I'm really poor at it. But if I keep pushing and pushing, I might close 1 out of every 10 people. But as I do that 100 times, those 10 people I closed 10 people out of, you know, every 100 that I did it, I do it 10 times, I close 10.
Mm-hmm.
The percentage seems really terrible, right? It's 10%. But that's where the law of averages kicks in, where once you're doing it, you're creating statistics that you can measure now. So if I'm closing 1 out of every 10, I can figure out in there, in that ratio, what I'm doing wrong.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm also gaining experience while I'm doing it. The third piece of this is, what I don't have in skill, I can make up in numbers. So again, I'm closing 1 out of 10, 1 out of 10, 1 out of 10, but after a while, I start to close 3 out of 10, and then 4 out of 10, and then 5 out of 10. You can only get better by having more opportunities. You have to create those opportunities, but you have to learn how to close these deals. So whatever it is, a lot of times you'll hear people say, like the book Chicken Soup for the Soul.
Mm-hmm.
The story of that book is, these guys wrote this book and took it to a conference in Florida. And there were over 300 publishers there, and they took it to every single one that said, who's going to want this? I mean, if you've ever seen that book, it's a tiny book, but it might have, 120 pages in it. And it's all real simple, basic. You've heard all these things before. So they finally find one publisher that's willing to publish it, and they said, how many books do you think you will sell? And they said 500,000 in our first year. And then the publisher laughs at them. They had a goal. They hustled. They talked to as many people as it would take just to publish one. And now everybody knows what that book is. There's multiple versions of it. But they took one product and didn't listen to the no's and kept going. But part of that is the circle of people around them were not saying to give up. And if they did, they scratched them off. It's not that you're being rude. You're just, you have to look at those 5 people, and like you said, they're your team. Mm-hmm. So whoever's on your team, that's who you're going to go to say, am I doing things right? What can I be doing better? You don't want to go to somebody and them say, it's okay if it didn't work out. Like your parents will want the best for you, or your family. But they also don't want to see you get hurt, right? The majority of people, when they go to their family and say, I want to start a business, the whole thing they're worried about is how are you going to feed yourself? How are you going to pay your rent or your mortgage or that? They're doing the right thing by protecting you. You have to be around, if you're an entrepreneur or a small business, you have to be around somebody who says, you can do this, but this is going to be hard and this is how you get there. Mm-hmm. When I started doing my entrepreneurship businesses, I went to, when I had the apparel company that we worked on for a little bit before we just scrapped it, I went to Harley Davidson. I went to the person that made their stuff and said, how could I do this? I didn't go to somebody that owned a local print place around here, which I could have done, but I wanted to know, how are you mass marketing this stuff? I'm not trying to get in that chain. All I'm trying to do is figure out, tell me what I need to know. If they're doing it every single day, they're the experts, right?
Right. Well, and that kind of brings up a good point. People find a mentor for whatever it is that you want to pursue, and just meet with them once a week or however often, just to get their insight and their influence. And I didn't get super in depth with it
because I was doing one job all during the day and then one job all during the night, and it was. I think one of the things that you had said to me is it shouldn't be this hard. And you didn't mean it like you should quit it. You were right, it shouldn't be this hard. What was hard about it was there was no money in it. Mm-hmm. If you're selling $10,000 worth of items and you're making $800, it's not worth it, right? How many $10,000 sales do you need? But I wanted to do it just simply to prove that it could be done. Once we did it, we just moved off of that. And there are other projects we're working on that are more stimulating for us, right? If we were doing that today, we wouldn't be doing all these radio shows.
Right.
And there are some days I wish we weren't doing all these radio shows, but...
Well, you have a lot of them.
Yes. But that's not... The intent was, when we started this, I just loved radio. I loved the fact that it's more than just running radio commercials and all that, So we kind of developed that, but we kind of get stuck. We have to sometimes write it. We have to be a part of it, those kind of things. As far as, so if we're looking at auditing your circle, when you had to do this, did you consciously make an effort, or did you just kind of drift off from the people?
I think a little bit of both. I mean, it wasn't so much that I forced myself to get away from them. It was just that I kind of wanted to. I wanted to just, I don't know. I know the goals that I have in mind for when I'm 25, 27, 30, whatever. And I knew that what I was doing at the time, if I kept doing that, I was going to stay stagnant, and I wasn't going to reach these goals.
But did you feel that, or were you kind of sitting back and, I think you can feel that. I think you can feel when somebody's a drag on your time.
Oh, yeah.
So, being that you're more introverted, and I think to some extent but not like you. I admire the introverted way you are, because I don't think anybody can read you, whereas I
get that.
Explosively angry.
Than anything else.
Yeah, people always think you're angry or you're sleepy. But out of those two things, I wish I could be more like that instead of reacting. But when something bothered me, I would be so aggressive towards the other person. Like, I need you to get away from it. Not realizing you can just stop. You can just not engage. But
I guess that's what I did. I just stopped engaging with the stuff that I felt was holding me back or bringing me down. And just started engaging with those 4, 5, 6 people that were going to bring me up.
How did you kind of figure that out, though? Like, was it easy to do? Was it easy to pick the ones that weren't serving the needs that you had?
I don't know that it was easy, and I didn't necessarily cut them completely out of my life. It's just I spend more time now with the people who are more of a positive influence, but I still have friends that are kind of stuck back where I was a few years ago. I see them now
in passing.
Yeah, and that's when I get the comments. So, how are you so lucky? How are you so?
How are you so lucky?
I don't know.
It always seems to work out for you. Like, you put no effort into it.
0 effort. I just wake up like this.
I would say from experience, I know that you're not the luckiest person. I know you work really hard to have these things. But okay, so that comment comes. You're so lucky. How's this always fall in your lap? How's that make you feel?
It makes me feel like people undermine my hard work, and I hate that.
Right.
I hate it so much. Like, someone yesterday said to me, "How do I get your life?" And I was like, "What?" It's just kind of almost like a slap in the face. Like, I wasn't handed this by any means.
Well, I think it's funny when someone there's a really good quote that the people who don't want you to succeed at some point can't wait until you do, so you can bring them along.
Yeah.
How
I had another instance. Actually, this was yesterday also. One of my friends, he's been really stagnant, and he actually wants to up and move to another state to start a business. And he was like...
Best way to do it is when you know nobody.
Yeah.
You have no connections. That's the best way to do it.
And I haven't talked to him in like a month or so, maybe a month and a half. And he was like, so I have this new business... business that I want to start up or whatever. And I had you in mind because I know that you're good at this kind of stuff and I know what you do for a living. And I was like, haven't heard from you.
Right.
And now you want to deal with me again.
Right. I need somebody who basically could get me there.
Yeah.
Right.
I need your knowledge.
Right. Well, on the other hand, when I started this 7, almost 8 years ago, I couldn't get one person that was, quote unquote, my friend to come along. And I'm like, you don't understand. All I need you to do is kind of just be there to fill the gaps. I'll get all the clients. We'll do all this together as a group. Not one person. It's kind of like Jerry Maguire when he's taking the goldfish, who's coming with me? That's how it felt.
That is.
It's a movie. It's in the 90s. Forget it.
Well,
so,
I was born then,
won an Academy Award. That's true. You were like 9 months old. But in that scene, I always think about that when I was leaving where I worked. That Jerry Maguire instance where it's like he's looking around. He's just gotten fired. I didn't get fired, by the way. I wish I would have. But there's a goldfish in there because he started this company, and he takes one of the fish in a plastic bag, and he turns around and he goes, "Who's coming with me?" And everyone just stares at him or looks away. And one person, the secretary, is like, "I'm coming with you," because she got so motivated by him being so we're gonna win, and then immediately regretting that decision. I couldn't even get anyone to get the goldfish bag for me. So, but then years later, people are like, I'd come to work for you for $90,000 or $100,000. I'm like, I bet you would. I bet you would. In fact, if you want to pay me $100,000, I'd do part-time work for you. But that's the thing that's when you know you're successful is you've got the right circle of people. And again, you're not going to be the most popular. People are going to be upset because they're not part of that. They weren't part of the process. They can't be there when it's time to get all the trophies, right? And you can't step on up here. Step on up because you did nothing. But that I want people to know you have got to scale back and be around people that force you up, right? And that's all that's about is the 5 people you surround yourself with are who you will become. Mm-hmm. And see, I'll let you talk more today. I feel good about that. I audited my circle.
I had 2 huge cups of coffee, so I was feeling a little better.
Well, I'm looking at your 48-ounce mug right now.
Yeah.
bring that for next week. You're going to need it again. We are out of time for this week, but thank you for listening to the 101, and we will see you next week.
Bye.
Bye.